1939, my father, who used to work at the Coke Works, came in one morning. He said, "You start work at the Coke Works on Monday as office boy." So that's how I started my long and illustrious career at Consett Works. And from there, I went through the offices and finished up in industrial relations and retired there in December 1980.
You retired?
Well, redundant retired. Tired.
A cap full of nail holes sent across to the joiner shop. I didn't fall for it myself, but the joiner there with his pipe, and the young apprentice went in with a cap and, what do you want? I want a cap full of nail holes. And it was immediately whipped off his head, and he hammered about half a dozen 6-inch nails into the bench along with a cap.
Boiler shop, we used to work a rota round the plant on call out night shift, and we had a nice coke fire down at boiler shop, and we used to sleep in the barrows, and it was just an ordinary wheelbarrow, you know, and he used to prop it up on the handles and stick an oil drum underneath the wheel and then put a couple of old rivet sacks in, you know, and that was made a lovely bed. And of course the annoying thing, these jokers, the gaffers from the fitting shops, they used to get the messages to come in and shake the welders. They want to clag us up the plate mill, you know. And it used to be most annoying because you just got nicely settled down after having your bait. And one particular night, I woke up and I woke me mate up. I says, "How?" I says, "They want us up the plate mill." I says, "Harry Smallwood wants us." He says, "What for?" He says, I said, "I don't know." I says, "They've been in." I says, "There's a bloody breakdown up there." So we goes away, trailing away up the mill road. And I went and saw Harry Sawdust, we used to call him, Harry Smallwood, he's shift engineer. I says, what's the matter, Harry? What do you want, like? Well, I says, "Been in from the fitting shop, wanting us," and I dreamt it all. There'd been no call out and out, and you know, you get that used to being called out, that I dreamt it all, that I'd been called out by this rotten fitting shop foreman, and I dreamt it all. It was all, it wasn't a hoax or anything like that, and nobody had made it up. I'd just dreamt it, and I'd woke up in the middle of this dream being called out.
Just been talking to Colin here about your granddad. He drove the ingot charger, and this particular time the juice went off. Well, you know, and it was going towards the buffers, and of course your granddad was like squealing, you know. So it did the damage. The crane, the main boom was bent, you see. So near the August fortnight, we went up to repair it. And when it was finished, it was like a new charger, you know. And I was nearly cried my eyes out when they pulled it down when the work's finished. But such a good job wasted, really.
Yeah. I didn't know I'd get stories about your granddad.
We had a young apprentice at the sheds with the unfortunate surname of Pyle, and he fell for everything. And the finish we were making him up, you know. Everything we told him he fell for. Anyhow, he sort of befriended me, and he was working in what was known as the tin shop in the engine sheds with a gang who were once more pulling his leg. And he came running through to me, I was working in another bay. Kenny, what's a hemorrhoid? Yeah, I says, "Bell." Well, you know, of course the other lads had got through to me before he came. I said, "Bell, the only hemorrhoid I know is Molly Hemorrhoid lives in Stanley." He says, "And I'm related to her." They convinced this lad that because his name was Pyle, he had a relation in Stanley called Molly Hemorrhoid, and the lad believed it. Same lad finished up as chief engineer in the hospital somewhere down south, as far as I know. But
does anybody remember a guy called Swing Thompson?
Yes.
Oh, I was assigned to him. Is he still around?
Yes, I met him in hospital 12 months ago.
Right.
And he's in pretty poor shape, but still the same.
Well, I was assigned to him, and he taught me a lot. He said, "Look at this, I'm gonna teach you something here." And he got a big piece of paper, and he drew a little circle. He says, "See that there? It's a rabbit dropping." So then he drew a bigger one. He says, "So what would that be?" I says, "Well, I suppose that would be a cat." And he drew a bigger one. So what do you reckon that would be then? I says, "Well, it'd be a dog then." And he drew a bigger one. I said, that's a horse." He drew a great big one. I says, "Well, that'll have to be an elephant, won't it?" He says, "Right." So then he says, "You know, the Amazon River, how long is it?" I don't know. Oh, right. He says, "What's the capital of something or other?" And he asked me about 6 or 7 questions like that. couldn't answer them. He says, you know what it is, young, you know more about shit than you know about geography. And that was all I learned, because he never did much work.
Shift work in the works on 2 till 10 or whatever. They would leave work and come up and go to the cinema and go back to clock off. I think this was a regular thing. People didn't really know what they did, and the story that I heard from my wife's cousin, he worked in the works, he was on the demurrage, he checked the trucks along the railway lines, and this man used to come into the cabin every morning, sat down, had a cup of tea, picked up his bag and off he went. Nobody knew where he worked, and when the man retired, they couldn't fill the job because they didn't know what he did. It was a place like that.
It is essential, in my opinion, that the works have got to be opened for the future. Opened in as much as it's our heritage. And I have a collection of photographs from way back of old steel working people, right up to its closure. And I've got nearly all the photographs of when it was demolished, which was a crime in itself. We couldn't do anything about that. But I should think that the majority of people of the older generation of ourselves would have liked A, to be kept open, B, if it couldn't be done that, is to be kept alive for our future children, because Consett was synonymous to steel. No one has had the insight to make a model of the works for our future generations just to see. And one of the most remarkable buildings in the area was the offices, where Bill worked. Ornate tops. And when you look at it closely on a photograph, you see about the old Victorian ways how to build a building. Myself and 2 other friends knocked on doors, telephone calls, wrote letters to say, look, please do not demolish the general offices. That fell on deaf ears, and I have a lot of newspaper cuttings to substantiate that. It fell on deaf ears, and now what we have is just a green belt. Now they're talking about a heritage centre, and that was the ideal place to have it. It's the biggest shame of the all.
There's something I'm going to say now, and I'd be interested in the reaction. A few years ago, a Tory minister, Ken Clark, came to the region and said he was pleased at how well Consett Steel Company were doing. And of course, it'd been gone a long time. How did any of you lot feel about that?
Totally disgusted, you know, that closed what we all thought, I think, was a marvellous place. And we produced marvellous steel. We produced steel for lots of things that, you know, we were the first people, we invented checker plate, all kinds. Most of the bridges in, I think, Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Anglesey Bridge, Blackpool Tower, were all built with Consett Steel. And I think a lot of people had a pride in Consett like that. And when he came out with a statement like that, I think I was devastated.
There's no doubt that Consett produced very good steel, and it was very important to a lot of people in the area. It was the main employer in the area. But you've got to look at it sensibly. Consett Works was in the wrong place, unfortunately. Had it remained a private company and not been nationalised, then it might have been different. They would have fought for survival, but the cost of bringing the ore into Consett, then taking the steel out of Consett, they were in the wrong position.